short-term rental host and owner, if you are treating it as a mom and pop and you aren't raising the bar and you aren't getting better, you're going to get wiped out by the operators who understand how to really develop and create an experience. Four Seasons, I promise you, understands how to create an experience for their guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're back with Whiskey Wednesday. And my main man, Dave Savolich, is off today. He's sick, and so recovering from an illness. And so me and producer Jake are in here. Jake, what's up, my man?
How you doing?
Jake's in the producer seat, so he's not sitting right across from me, but you guys can see him if you're on YouTube still. We got a camera on him in the producer seat.
Yeah, we're feeling good. The show must go on. We can't stop.
No, we can't stop. No, we don't. These are the Whiskey Wednesdays are very, we have to be up to speed if we're going to talk about things going on in the real world, things going on in the short-term rental world. What do we have on the agenda today? What are we talking about?
We got a good amount of stuff today. First, we're going to start off with some hockey.
Hockey.
Some big game happened. Some fun things happened. We got to cover that. Then we'll dive into what DOGE is finding out. Elon Musk is going through finding out some stuff with the IRS and some more USAID things. Then we got a good bit of short-term rental questions and kind of answers about the real world, about what's really going on to help out. But first and foremost, hockey.
Hockey.
Yeah. Big game, man. That's kind of a fun thing, huh?
That was fun. USA, Canada.
I mean, that's not like when I think of USA sports, I don't really think hockey. You know?
I don't.
But when I think Canada,
I think hockey. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to say, hey,
it's
we're going to win it either way.
Nice rivalry to our friends to the north, and they fired up the USA team up in Canada, up in Montreal, huh?
They shouldn't have.
No,
they shouldn't have.
No,
if you didn't hear, they booed.
They booed
our national anthem, and then 3 fights broke out. That's just how it has to go.
Yeah, I was really fired up and excited how that whole thing went down. One, I don't think you should ever boo a national anthem, period.
No.
Like, sports are sports, right? I played sports, and when you go into an opposing team's arena or, wherever you're playing and you're not on your home field or your home court, it's you're expecting to get booed and you're going to get heckled and they're going to get, but that's sports, right?
Come on.
Like, maybe the fight song you can boo, maybe you can do that, but you don't boo national anthems. I actually have a little different take on this.
Okay.
Of why it upset me so much. One is the national anthem. I don't think you should boo national anthems, period.
Right.
Like, are you going to boo in the Olympics when they play the national anthem in the winter? No. I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should. I'm a huge burning of a flag guy. Like, I feel like that you should get punched in the face if you burn a flag.
Right.
Period. Okay. And so I don't think that's right. And so, but interestingly, my daughter performs a lot, and she started performing and singing national anthems. And so did you watch the video of the guy that was singing the national anthem?
I saw a clip.
So he was a rock star. He kept going.
Right.
And imagine you're big, that's a big deal for a performer to get up on stage and get on a platform and have the opportunity to sing your national anthem in front of a crowd. And there's certain things that I think that they're not, the performers aren't signing up like the athletes are, right? You can boo an athlete, right? Boo the athletes when they take the ice, whatever you want to do. That's sports, right? But singing the national anthem, one, I think it's disrespectful to boo it. Secondly, I really felt like it was like, it got me fired up because I was like, if that was my daughter singing the national anthem and everybody's booing while she's singing it, and she was so excited about it, these performers, they rehearse.
It's a tough song.
It's a tough song to do. They're doing their best, and you're getting booed. And he kept going like a rock star. So I applaud him for that, and I loved that hockey team. I mean, it was immediately 3 fights, boom, guys are dropping on the ice 3 seconds into the game. I was like, part of me was like, that guy that sang the national anthem had to be like, hey man, I appreciate you guys sticking up for me.
Yeah, seriously.
Right? One, it represents a lot of different things, and then they went and proceeded to beat them in the game, which was awesome. And now they might play them again in the championship. There's a possibility, I think, that they can play again in the championship, and so that'll be interesting to see. We better win, because there's a lot of people on this side of the aisle that have been talking a lot of crap, right?
I believe we're going to win, and I don't think they're going to boo a second time.
I don't know. They might. I mean, they got
no way.
Really? You think they
bro? If you boo the first time and then 3 fights break out,
I don't know.
And then you lose.
I've played a lot of sports games, and there's been a lot of trash talking when a team's down by 30 and they keep going. Sometimes they just do it. And so I don't like anybody that boos a national anthem. I don't think that you should ever boo a national anthem when it's being played. You don't necessarily have to, I don't expect a Canadian to put their hand over their heart and but I think that there's a sign of respect if any national anthem, same as if I go to the Olympics and I'm watching the Olympics and the gold medal winner gets their flag raised and the national anthem played and everybody's respectful. That's what you do. I feel like. And so, and it really bothered me from the aspect of the performer, right? I've played college basketball, played in a lot of big stadiums, played in the NCAA tournament, and there's a lot of crowds who boo you. You expect that, but the halftime performers, the national anthem performers, the people that go on stage, like I speak on stages as well. You're hoping that you don't get booed when you're doing your best to try to perform, right? So,
and it's going to be tough that he didn't take that to heart or something like that, And like you said, they do practice. We've seen plenty of people bomb the national anthem, dude. Yeah, where they sing it and it's not that good.
No,
and then to have that stress of thousands of people booing you as you're going,
as you're doing it, man. Hey, he did a good job. So good job on finishing it off, and good job to the USA hockey team by going and taking care of business on the court, and also
that's what I'm talking about.
Just sending a message that don't boo our national anthem.
That's one of the quotes I have here. One of the players, I don't even know how to say his last name, Matthew Tkachuk.
Is he even American?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
He said, we needed to send him a message.
I'm just messing with you. We need to send a message. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes you got to send a message.
Did they play in Canada?
Yeah, there was Montreal.
They played in Canada.
Montreal. Yeah.
So if we play them again in the championship, do you know if we're going to play them here?
No, I think it's a tournament up there. I think it's like a.
Oh, we have to keep going back there.
No, I think it's an actual I'm not a huge hockey fan, so don't beat us up. And Jake is obviously not either because
I don't know.
He doesn't know, but I think it's an actual kind of a tournament up there.
Okay.
Yeah, with an international teams coming up and doing their thing.
Well, some other things that people have been booing about here.
Okay.
DOGE. I mean, this is a little bit more serious. We're going to keep
looking at this apparently because we've talked about this a couple times on Whiskey Wednesday, and then we'll get to the short-term rentals. But
a new side's come out. A whole new. I mean, we had USA ID, and now it's the Social Security.
Yeah.
I mean, he's moving on to his next victim here, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
No, I am. We were talking at lunch, and I think that's why you put this on here. I'm going to try to keep it as PG as possible,
right?
But I do get fired up. I love what Musk is doing. I love what DOGE is about, and I don't understand how anybody would care about the audits and the forensic, audit that he's doing and looking to where our tax dollars are being spent and where the money's going. As U.S. citizens, we should not have, there's absolute fraud, there's absolute waste, and it's on both sides of the aisle. He's not just going after and saying, hey, this is not one, and I don't believe it's a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's both sides of the aisle.
Right.
They're skimming off the top. And in my opinion, there should be some serious consequences when you find all these, like the USAID, when they have all these, all these organizations that this money goes to, and they're all overseas, which is what USAID is about. So they're all going to be overseas organizations. We saw some crazy ones with, condoms going to Gaza, $50 million. You see, sex change operations happen in Pakistan or wherever it is, right? There's all these crazy things happening. We're like, why are our tax dollars going there? First of all, I guarantee when this is the tip of the iceberg and a few more layers of the onion come off, you're going to find that the money actually wasn't spent for condoms in Gaza or whatever else. There's some NGO and it's tied to a senator's husband or wife or family member, and they're the board of director, the head of the board of directors and they're getting a salary from this board, and all of a sudden that money's getting siphoned back to them. There's a reason why, if you make $200,000 a year, or whatever senators make, even over a 20-year period, it's next to impossible mathematically to take that $250,000 that you're making and be worth $70 million, right? And so, there's reasons why they're all throwing tantrums right now when Elon is saying, hey, listen, we're going to go do this. Why are we throwing a tantrum around an audit? And why does anybody care about it? Why wouldn't every taxpayer want to see an audit? I run a business. We run audits all the time. We want to stop wasteful spending. We look at our subscriptions all the time. We look at the money we spend all the time and say, hey, listen, We're going to audit this. We're going to look at this. This isn't probably the best use of our money. Let's change it up. And he's diving into this stuff. And all these people are throwing a tantrum about why. And the reason for it is because they're getting the money.
Right.
And they're siphoning money off the top. You want to talk about the biggest money laundering campaign in the history of the world, probably, is this government spending and our senators and congressmen and judges and everybody that has a tie to it taking this money and overcharging the American citizen. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. So that's why we keep talking about it, is because I think it's ridiculous. I just, I'm not going to say exactly how much money I pay in taxes, but I pay close to 7 figures a year in taxes. I'm going through an audit right now, and they want to audit, stupid little things that and I pay a lot of money in taxes. And I go through an IRS audit, and I don't have, that's part of my obligation is they need to make sure the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. Fine, go do your thing. But why are you throwing a tantrum when the American citizens are saying, hey, we want the same audit, right?
That's crazy. Because it's not wasteful spending to them, because it gets them off the top.
It's not. Look, what was the judge's name that the federal judge? Do you have that pulled up?
Yeah, John, I know it. John J. McConnell
Jr. He issued the order that hey, listen, we need to stop this funding freeze or the spending freeze, and he ruled that Trump doesn't have the authority to do that.
Come on,
you pull a few layers of the onion back. He's a board of directors on an NGO that's getting like $100 million.
Come on,
and so it's like, what's his salary from that? Like, no kidding, you want to stop the funding freeze because you're getting all that money off the top,
right?
And I don't know. I could go on this forever. You have a bunch of stuff written down. I think it's absolutely insane. And I don't know who in their right mind would have a problem with this other than the people that are siphoning money off the top. But American citizens, we should be absolutely furious that our tax dollars are going to this kind of stuff and this kind of, this siphoning off the top needs to be held. People need to be held accountable.
I think accountability is one of the main things. I think, especially
I don't know if there's going to be. I mean, what is the accountability? I don't know what. I just hear that here's all this wasteful spending. Here's what we're doing. Social Security now. There's tens of millions of people over the U.S. population, above and beyond the actual total population in the U.S. that are eligible for Social Security. There's somebody on that list that Elon just published. 326 years old, still getting Social Security.
Oh yeah,
and they're all all the Democrats are out there saying, like, the Chuck Schumers of the world and your Nancy Pelosi's and the Elizabeth Warrens. These people that are like throwing absolute temper tantrums, saying we're shutting down Social Security. It's going to affect everyday Americans. How about let's be responsible with Social Security money so that those of us that are our age and they're telling us it's going to be gone we're paying into it, and it's going to be gone by the time we're retired. And look at what's being spent out there right now. It's absolutely insane. There's a whole, like, millions and millions of dollars being spent on duplicate payments and deceased people that are still getting payments. We're just saying, let's stop that. Like, let's stop that. We're not trying to shut it down for the people that actually deserve it and need it and are getting it. And so I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely ridiculous. I feel like that the people that are throwing the biggest tantrums are probably some of the, I mean, they're not even really covering it up that well as far as when you track the money back, right? I mean, it's like, we just found this. And then this judge, it happens to be, there was a Yale professor or something that was online saying, we had a government contract and immediately they shut it down and there's $1 million left on the government contract. Well, his wife is running this organization that helps impoverished Afghan,
the Turquoise Mountain organizations, and she teaches them about abstract art, something in Afghan.
I mean, you watch it, you can't even make this stuff up.
You go, what? What are we doing?
And he's crying, and it's so sad, and this is wrong, and how bad is Elon Musk and Trump and everything else. I mean, this is not to me, DOGE is not a political thing. It's on both sides of the aisle. There's fraud on both sides. There's two sides of the aisle in government with Republicans and Democrats, and I promise you, there's plenty of people on both sides that are siphoning off the top, and they're absolutely involved in this. And to me, I mean, as a taxpayer, as much money as I pay in taxes, going through another damn audit and having to deal with that bullshit right now is frustrating as hell when you start to see this list of all this money that's being wasted, yet you're not happy with the almost 7 figures I pay in annual taxes.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm going to kind of throw back to what Dave said a couple episodes ago when we were talking about pardoning. and he was talking about, the people that ask for pardons, you have to question, why do you need a pardon? Right? Like, well, why are you throwing a temper tantrum if you're actually innocent?
If you're innocent,
if there's nothing,
why are we doing that? We claim, but anyway, sorry. We probably, it's a short-term rental show. And so, but this is, I think as, when it comes to audits, if I'm a business owner and I'm going to sell a business, you're going to get a forensic audit from the buyer. They're going to look at your financials. They're going to look at every line item on your financials.
Right.
In the real world, we understand this. We understand audits. We understand accounting. We understand that stuff when you have to actually pay, your own bills and build your own business and pay attention to all that stuff. And then when we actually ask it as citizens to say, hey, we would like our government to have to be as accountable as we are for our own money.
Yeah.
And our own businesses and everything else. Yeah. And there's temper tantrums being thrown. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all.
I felt like one of the main temper tantrums that I saw, which was kind of interesting to me, how they're kind of like bending it, was I kept hearing and seeing people say that your private data is at risk, and you're right. And I'm like, come on, man, my phone right there is listening to me all the time.
So every private company that has all of our information is
all the time.
All the time. Now, I mean, our private data is at risk all the time. So get real.
So come on, like that can't
the IRS is not the only people. The Social Security Administration are not the only people that have our date of birth, our Social Security numbers, our income, our addresses. I mean, almost every institution we work with, financial institution and otherwise, they know that stuff anyway. So get real. I mean, you're grasping at straws, in my opinion.
I know. Yeah, it's a tough scene, especially for. I mean, every American, but especially for, I would say, my generation, young Americans that go, man, we're just kind of starting out in this, right? I'm becoming an adult. I'm learning about money and learning about this kind of thing. And you go, man, who are the leaders? What's happening here?
Right.
It's disheartening, So accountability is, I think, the main thing.
Yeah, and I think we keep talking about this on the start of every show. We'll just look at the stupid stuff. We'll bring it up. We don't need to talk about it for as long as we do, but I'll try to tone it down a little bit. But I get really frustrated.
What about this? Is there a certain place you would want them to go next? Have you thought about that yet?
No, I think that we're at the very tip of the iceberg at this stage. I do think they need to go fast. I think that there needs to be accountability because if you let people just continue to get away with it, what I would love to see them do is just say, hey, listen, everybody, you guys, you American citizens, you don't need to pay taxes until we figure this out, because obviously we're not being a good steward of your tax money and tax dollars and being spent. So, there's a reason congressional approvals are at all-time lows. They usually always are, but I mean, they should be at ridiculously all-time lows because Congress approves the budgets and these bills. Well, the other thing that I thought was so ridiculous is Musk, he says he proposed that any new bill that gets proposed through Congress and Senate is published publicly for 7 days. Let the American citizens comment on it, look at it, see this stuff, and let people look at them, and they're throwing a fit about it. Like, oh, yeah, how does why?
Which doesn't make sense.
That's just it's like transparency. Let's just look at it because you're obviously and they name these bills, feeding the poor kids in. Wherever, Pakistan. And that's the absolute opposite usually of what the bill is. They name these bills these crazy names that really pretty much usually it's the opposite of what the bills are. There's same as these organizations.
Things hidden in them and stuff.
And they're these massive bills. Like, let us look at them. Let us look at them. I trust that guys like, that are smarter than us, like a Musk and his team and everybody else. Look at the stuff he's uncovering just on the surface.
And it's not that hard, apparently. He's not searching that hard.
No,
it doesn't sound like he's got hundreds of people on this team, but
no, it's pretty. He's finding a lot of money. And so I'd like to not be paying as much taxes as I am. Imagine if everybody got a 30% raise. U.S. citizens got a 30% raise because we're not paying half of it in taxes.
I mean, the approval rate of Trump would just go through the roof.
Just the economy. Look at everybody's lives would be better. And listen, I would not, if they're saying, hey, listen, your tax money's going to the parks, the infrastructure, the roads, all this stuff, and our cities were immaculate, and the money was actually being spent efficiently, I don't think a lot of Americans would be upset. Like I wouldn't. I'd be like, hey, listen, I see that you're at least spending the money to good use. And even like these organizations that are do-good organizations, if they were actually like, go give the money to Feeding America with Tony Robbins. Look at his efficiency with feeding poor people, and like the cost to provide a meal is like in the couple dollar range, not the Chelsea Clinton's the $1,400 range per meal that her organization provides. Like be more efficient with stuff. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. It's tough, but all right. Let's move on.
Okay, let's go.
Here we go. Let's go into some short-term rental stuff.
Supposed to talk about.
Okay, this is a little bit more fun. Okay, so I found this article, the Four Seasons. Let's talk about this one first. The Four Seasons, they plan on growing their villa and residence vacation homes. Currently, they're at 900 homes in 32 global locations.
Nice.
Now, in my opinion, I kind of think is that competition for us? Right? Or is that just a sign to show that no, this industry is still booming, even hotel industries when it comes into this?
Yeah. And we've seen Marriott Homes and Villas got into the game, and now you got Four Seasons saying, hey, listen, we're going to get into this. We understand that short-term rentals, this type of accommodation, this is just more validation that the big money is recognizing that this is not anything that's going away anytime soon. Like we've done market reports. We look at market reports. We cover things like this all the time. I just did a podcast recently with Avery Carl. We were talking all about the market that's going to release soon and kind of the upcoming, the demand. The demand just continues to skyrocket. It actually is almost, for a couple of years, it kept shocking me that it kept going up, even post-COVID, that the dollars being spent were continuing to go up, and they continue to go up. They're anticipated to go up at 11% per year. That just is telling you the hotel industry, the big money in the hospitality game, the Four Seasons, the Marriotts of the world, they're getting into this game knowing that this is an accommodation choice that travelers prefer. They also know that they're not going to compete directly with their hotels, right? They're two different products within hospitality, and they serve different purposes. And they're realizing there's a lot of money being spent by the consumer. Last year in 2024, I think it was about $125 billion. 2033, they're anticipating over $300 billion in the short-term rental space, not in hospitality, in short-term rentals.
Right.
And so these hotel brands and these big brands, they realize, hey, this is kind of a mom and pop business.
Yeah.
And so we actually understand hospitality a lot better than most of these owners and hosts.
Right.
And so why don't we get in and get our unfair share of business, which I think it's a smart move. And now as a short-term rental host and owner, if you are treating it as a mom and pop and you aren't raising the bar and you aren't getting better, you're going to get wiped out by the operators who understand how to really develop and create an experience. Four Seasons, I promise you, understands how to create an experience for their guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not about the nicest properties. It's about the experience that they actually are able to go create. And so this is one validation that there's money in this game. But it's also should be a little bit of a warning to hosts that are out there. You're not just going to post your property on Airbnb and get that business, because there's going to be operators and competitors out there that know how to get their unfair share of business, and you better be able to do the same.
Yeah, and they want their part.
Exactly.
So if you need to learn, we can help you with that. If you need to upgrade,
that's what we do at Odyssey. So there you go.
Here we go. Property.
We don't talk about DOGE all day on at Odyssey. So
no, that's just a little. It's a little part. That's a little part. Okay. Now this next thing. Ignoring regulations, the cost of that, right? The fines, the legality, all of this kind of thing. Let's talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah, there's a good article about the price of ignoring those regulations, and it's steep, right? You're seeing in some of those areas like San Francisco, New York, Singapore that have very strict short-term rental rules, regulations, that those operators that are still trying to fly under the radar and try to operate. I mean, you're seeing San Francisco, just a couple was fined $2.25 million for illegally renting out multiple units of short-term rentals in violation of city regulations. They falsely claimed to be living in the units while operating them as short-term rentals. I'm sure that fine was high because they lied and said they were living there. They weren't living there. New York City, two Airbnb hosts were fined combined $17,000 for illegally listing properties. These cities are cracking down and putting these fines in place and ultimately shutting down properties. Again, New York, Barcelona, lawsuits are being filed. These cities are saying, hey, listen, we're done with this. You're going to pay the price. And we get questions all the time of one, how do you kind of fly under the radar? There's actual gurus, if you will, with air quotes, if you're not watching me on YouTube, is out there telling people how to operate in cities with strong regulations that you're not supposed to. And it is an absolute terrible advice. It's horrible advice. It doesn't matter if you want to hear that as a host.
Right.
If your city doesn't allow it, and you're not going to operate within the rules, you are going to get in trouble, period. Yep. We are a mainstream asset class at this stage. Yeah. There are going to be places that you can and that you cannot operate a short-term rental. If you try to operate where you cannot, it doesn't matter how much you want to be in New York or San Francisco. If they say you can't do it, you can't do it.
Don't do it. What are you doing?
Don't do it. And so if the worst case scenario happens to you and you get put out of business, you only have you to blame, right? In the underwriting, the very first thing we do is look at the investability of the market. We look at the ratio between the acquisition cost, average acquisition cost in an area, and the average revenue in an area. Because I can run that calculation within 5 minutes.
Right.
And if that calculation looks favorable for me as an investor on the ROI side, then I say the very next thing I do is I'm going to look and say, can I actually operate as a short-term rental? What does it? What do the rules, regulations look like? So it's really outside of the very first step of just making sure the numbers quickly work, right? Not detailed numbers, just quickly, what does that ratio look like between acquisition cost, revenue generated? I have a specific ratio that I'm looking for. If it looks good, I have to look into the regulations. I have to make sure I can operate. And it's outside of just like, you have to look at multiple areas. You got to look at the state level, everybody operates, allows them. You have to look at the county. You have to look at the city. And you have to look at your neighborhood HOAs if you're within an HOA. And all of those different layers have different rules and regulations. And you have to see, are they favorable or are they not favorable? And what you're finding is that all of a sudden, these cities that are saying, hey, listen, if you're going to fly under the radar, we've got some stiff penalties and we got some stiff fines. In San Francisco, the couple's facing a $2.25 million fine. Does anybody as a host want to deal with that? Even if $10,000 or $15,000 fine? Or what about just getting shut down? And I know. This is happening as well as Airbnb and Vrbo are helping some of these cities crack down with the illegal listings that aren't that are not. And they're saying you're going to lose your listing platform reputation. You're going to be blacklisted. You're not going to be able to list on those platforms because you're breaking the rules. And so, as a host, I can't say it more like strongly is saying, guys, this is your fault if this happens to you. Quit saying, hey, listen, regulations are changing on me. If you go into a market that the regulations aren't set, and that's rare anymore, but that used to be the case. If you're in a market that they don't have licensing and permitting, I'd be very, very nervous to invest into that market because that could change. They could change those rules on me at some point. Now, you also could be in a market that you have to reapply for a license every single year. That's also risky because what if those rules change for the next year you do it? So is it going to eliminate some markets that you want to invest in? Yes. It is. Yeah. But that's the name of the game as an investor, especially if you're an owner, right? And so, and we're in the ownership game. And so I'm going to make sure that I look at that in the very, very beginning stages of underwriting, right? And so it is sad that this stuff happens, but it happens honestly, for a reason.
You have no one else to blame. If you want to step into this asset class, there's due diligence, right? There's things you have to take care of. Especially you're saying the state, the county, the city levels, at the HOA level, I don't understand the mentality of trying to like weasel around that. No matter the amount of greed or whatever the ROI is on the property.
And I don't think about going and building a house without the permits in place. And you start building it, you put your foundation and you start framing it up, and the city comes by and says, hey, listen, you have to take this down because we didn't inspect it. You don't have a permit to build this, everything else. And most people understand you're going to probably have to tear that thing down. It's going to get condemned. It's not going to get permitted. Like you didn't get the permit. And or what if I'm in a family neighborhood that is zoned for residential, and I go try to build an apartment complex, and they tell me, no, you can't do that, but I secretly go build an apartment complex in the middle of a whole bunch of houses that I'm not allowed to. You think you're going to get away with that? No, there's rules and regulations in place on the housing side, and short-term rentals are a mainstream asset class. You better understand what the rules and regulations are, period. And sure, it's going to make it to where you can't operate in certain areas. But you should know that in the very beginning before you spend $1 investing in that area.
Don't waste your time is another
thing. Don't waste your time. There's markets that work. There's markets that don't work. Go find the ones that work and make this work for you.
Right. Love it. Okay. Now we got some school questions.
Okay.
Should we, let's do this one first. Okay. So someone, one of our members, if you have a question, email it to support@vodyssey.com. We'll get it answered for you. One of our members in our school platform asked this. They have a property. It's close to a biking trail, and they wanted to provide bikes to their guests. And they're curious, how do I know what kind of bikes to buy? Do I buy one adult male and female and some kids bikes? Do I buy the most expensive ones since this is like a luxury style, or some cheap ones because they're going to get destroyed? What should I do when it comes to these amenities?
One, they are going to get used a lot. So I always lean toward quality when I'm buying stuff. But let's go. The first step is you need to make sure that your insurance will allow you to have bikes. There are some insurance carriers that are not going to cover you if you have bikes in your property. And so you want to say, hey, listen, I need to call my insurance carrier. I need to say, hey, listen, we're operating as a short-term rental. You should have short-term rental insurance in place. And then you need to say, listen, I'm thinking about bikes in our property. Do you allow that? Do you allow electric bikes? Do you allow, what are the types of bikes that you allow? And so you identify, can you even operate bikes? Because your insurance allows it, right? And covers it. Because you want to make sure you're covered liability-wise. Secondly, how many you should buy and what kind. You don't need a bike for every, let's say you host your property that hosts 8 people or 10 people.
Right.
You can get away with 4 bikes, right? But the type you buy is based on who is your target audience. If your target audience is a family,
there we go.
or families that are going to have adults and kids, you need to have a couple kid bikes, couple adult bikes, right? You need to, if it's all adults, you need to have 4 adult bikes, whatever it is, right? And so you want to match the type of bike for the type of riding that they're going to be doing, but also the actual guest that's going to be in there, and
your target audience.
And sometimes there's times where electric bikes make more sense than something else. You might have an off-road like mountain bike because your trails, that's what they're there for. Maybe they're the beach cruisers around the city or whatever else. But the size and all that stuff, I would just make them kind of gender neutral. I wouldn't worry about male or female type bikes, but I would do adult and kids if I had a mixed target audience with families, and lean more toward that. But find out if you can do it. Buy quality. I always try to buy. You don't have to buy the most expensive, but don't go to Walmart and buy your cheapest Huffy that you can find. Right. And I didn't mean to throw shade on Huffy. It's just what came to mind right there. It's what I drove, or it's what I had my whole life, so I know it was not an expensive bike.
That's all right. Okay. That was good. Do your due diligence is what I got out of that.
Yep.
Especially with the insurance. Okay, now this is kind of like a personal question, something that I've noticed for listeners and watchers. I'm looking for a place to rent, and I found that there's a huge amount of properties that are listing their basement, 2-bed, 1-bath, for example, their basement, or even like a detached part of their home property. And I was curious, question for you. Do you think these people should be using that amount of property, that extra space, as a short-term rental, or is that too close to their families, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and kind of a layered question that doesn't have a definite answer. One, there's a lot of people that I know that are able to use ADUs, basements, extra space at their properties, and do really well with short-term rentals.
Right.
It does detract from the guest experience, though, when the host is on site or on property. And so if you're going to run down that road, you want to be very, very clear that it is an ADU or that it is a basement unit, so that the guest coming in understands that that's what they're getting into, and they're okay. A lot of times, as long as the expectations are set, they're good with it, and they want to still feel like they've got their own privacy, they've got their own space, they're not getting looked over. I always find Verbo's. I love the Verbo ads with like Nick Saban and stuff, and he's on there, and their ads are always, because they don't allow that, right? They only allow single properties, and so because there is that other flip side of the coin where you're saying, listen, nobody wants to go with the host right there, right? And in there, over the top of them, their thumb on them, watching everything they're doing. It's just uncomfortable. You want your privacy. A lot of times that's why you rent these types of spaces. But there's also that other side where I know some hosts that they're part of the experience, right? They have dinner and drinks with these people. They build, it's almost like a B&B more of an experience, but they're setting that expectation up from the very beginning, so the guest knows when they come into it. So it can work both ways. You just, if you're going to do it, run the numbers, see if you're going to make more money doing that versus the long term. And if you would enjoy having people come in and hosting people at your property and then being part of that experience that close.
Yeah. It goes back to the AI photos. It made me think of that, like catfishing customers. If you're posting a 2-bed, 2-bath place, and then they show up and you're upstairs,
Oh yeah, it's a problem. That's where it's a no-no, right?
That's not going to end well for you.
No, it's not.
Right.
You want, if you're going to be on site as a host,
right,
you need to let the guests know that you are on site as a host, and this is how it works, and whether you're going to stay out of their hair or whether you like to have drinks with them at night, if they would like that, like you've got to set those expectations up so that the people, the clearer the expectations, one, the more likely you're going to attract the right target audience that's going to appreciate that and want that experience, because we all want different experiences,
right?
And so and they know what they're walking into, everything's fine. If it's when you don't disclose that you're on site that it becomes a problem.
Right. Okay. Next one. Here in Utah, we've had some serious storms, and across the country, there have been some wild storms for even places where they're not expecting it. So the question is, say you got a cabin and a giant snowstorm came in. You have an STR, and there's a guest staying there. How can these hosts maybe go the extra mile or accommodate a little bit better? Should they find somebody to come, shovel the driveway? Or like how can you be accommodating in these times? Yeah.
So two sides of it. One is the side that is you're in an area that you get snow. You're in a mountain area. You're in an environment that you have snow. Like I've had STRs in those types of environments, and we have snow removal already lined up. We don't want to have our guests have to deal with getting stuck, shoveling walks, doing all that stuff. And so there's already in those areas that you're in a winter environment, we set up snow removal. It's part of what we do. It's like having yard maintenance, right?
Right.
You're not going to ask your guests to go cut the lawn for you. And the same as we're not going to have them remove the snow. We have that set up. We have somebody that's going to do that, whether that's us or somebody else, our property manager or somebody else that we hire to do that. That's going to be set up. The other side is this year we've had snow in some beach areas, and I mean Myrtle Beach. I was just talking to one of our members, and they had like 6 inches of snow for and they were shut down for like 5 days, right? And
crazy.
Downtown Atlanta was getting snow. There was areas that were just down on the on the Panhandle in Florida, they were getting snow. There's not a lot you can do to prepare for that because you're not going to have that stuff set up. You need to do whatever you can to let the guests know, hey, listen, we know this is happening. It's a big issue for the whole area. Nobody is, even the city infrastructure, the roads, they don't even have plows there, right? And so they don't have snow blowers, they don't have snow shovels, they don't have any of that stuff. So a lot of times those instances, it's going to also warm up and melt pretty quick. So you just have to deal with it for a few days. Communicate with the guests, do your best to make sure that they've got everything that they need. Because a lot of times you're not even able to get into those areas because everything's kind of shut down. So if you're in an area, in an environment that's normal, make sure that stuff's set up. It's just like yard care, right? You're going to have snow removal set up. If it happens to be, you've got guests in when a storm comes through, you got to make sure they're safe, make sure that they're, they've got everything they need. And a lot of that's just through communication and then just kind of waiting it out for a minute. Sometimes they're just having to hunker down for a day or two.
Yeah. Communication is key. I love it. Okay. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode, but we got to remind people, we got another Boardroom HQ workshop coming up.
Boardroom HQ is, they're all sold out. So
we sold out? That's what I'm talking about.
The next two are sold out. So
sorry, guys.
We've got our Boardroom HQ in February next week, end of February. Our marketing one in March is sold out. So we got our Design the Experience in February. March is sold out. So we'll keep reminding you guys about Boardroom HQ. And every single month we do one different topic, workshop style. We dive in, have a lot of fun. And so absolutely excited for those of you coming in for next week. And then you guys that join us, I appreciate you letting me rant a little bit on hot topics on the front end of these episodes. We appreciate you listening. We know how valuable your time is. Make sure you send those questions in. I love diving into those questions and making sure that we get your questions answered when it comes to short-term rentals. A lot of big things, a lot of things that we're working on for 2025 because the market has changed, and I have some big opinions on where the market's going, and we want to make sure that you guys are armed with what we're arming ourselves with to really operate and get our unfair share of business like we were talking about. And so if you have questions, send them in. If you have more than 30 seconds, like it, review it, whatever platform you're watching or listening on. We appreciate that. It helps us grow the show. Share it if you know somebody else who would like to be a part of these conversations. And the final, most important thing I ask you at the end of every episode, pick the one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.